Welcome back to the Barca Breakdown. My name is Yusuf, and I'm here with my co-host Adam.
What's up, guys? Smash that subscribe button. We have a very special episode today, and it's not only because I am in Wyoming, not basically LA, California. It's because we have a wonderful guest. First time ever in the Barca Breakdown history. Yus, why don't you take it away and introduce Jaleel?
So today we have Jaleel, the purist, on Twitter. He wrote a wonderful article called Decoding Barca's Center Backs, and this is an article, obviously, about all the signings we had this summer. But I'm going to give it right to Jaleel, let him introduce himself, tell the folks where to follow you, how long you've been following Barca.
Yus.
What?
I want to hype him up. I want to hype up Jaleel, okay? Because I don't know if our audience has seen him yet. But, I'd say the main deficiency you and I have, Yus, is that on the podcast and YouTube medium, getting very analytical, having images, talking about stats, especially when we're making reaction videos to episodes, it's super hard. And so a few months ago, I came across, the purist, at the purist _ on Twitter, and that is Jaleel, who we have today. And I've just been very impressed with the way he writes. He has a good tactical mind, and he's able to break down some of the biggest topics. So he's covered Serginho Dest, where should he be? Last season, he covered, why do Barca struggle against teams with 5 at the back? And so today, like you said, we're covering what should be Barca's, basically Gala back four for the season. And so, Jaleel, take it away. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me, guys. It's a pleasure. Love the show, of course, and very much looking forward to doing this with you. A bit about myself. I mean, there's not too much to say that you haven't already that would be of interest to anybody. Basically, I write about Barcelona as in-depth as possible, as tactically as possible on my Twitter and Medium pages, and you can find me at the purist _. And yeah, that's pretty much that's of interest to the listeners.
Perfect. And we'll have it. Don't worry, it's going to be up on the screen. So I just please all of you guys go to Twitter, follow him. He is a must follow for all of his content. And you have a great article today, Jaleel, because I think who we play in the back four, that's been a huge topic, right, Yus? And we've talked about it a lot. And, we had mixed feelings after, I think it was the Clasico. It might have been another preseason game where we weren't sure if, I think on one end you thought Araujo did pretty well at that right back position. For me, I was a little bit unsure. And so there was questions of, will Pk get a lot of playing time? Eric Garcia, will Serginho Dest still have a role at that right back spot now that we have Kounde? And so, Jaleel, if you would, could you just walk us through essentially, and we're going to have slides up showing the pros and cons of each different player, but what you think Xavi's best back four will be and why?
Yeah, sure. I guess I'll start by sort of just going through what my back four is. It's a little bit controversial, I think. I ran a poll on Twitter, and I think it was 80% of people wanted to see Kounde and Araujo as a centre-back partnership, which is, completely understandable. Mine's a little bit different. I've gone for Kounde at right back, Araujo and Christensen at centre-backs, and then Jordi Alba on the left. There's quite a few different reasons for that, which I can dive into if you'd like. But would you want me to go through the individual players first?
Sure, yeah, I'd love it.
Okay, well, we'll start with Kounde then. He's the most interesting. He is a very interesting centre-back because he's got an extremely offensive role, even for Sevilla, who are obviously such a defensively sound side. Even for a centre-back in a back two, he's often seen sort of marauding into the final third of the opposition's half, which is pretty much unheard of, if you're in a back two anyway. He carries the ball extremely well. Obviously, he's extremely athletic, very strong. He's not afraid to put balls into the box either from sort of a right half space sort of position. And on top of that, he's an extremely sound defender. His anticipation is fantastic. He reads the game extremely well. That makes him an excellent defender inside his own box because he doesn't dive in. He waits. He can read the game and make interceptions. And he's just an extremely well-rounded player, and obviously I understand why people want to see him at centre-back. I like him at right-back in this particular system because of how he's operated so far forward, and I think you get the best out of him if you give him more of a license to do that. Barca centre-backs typically remain very central. They have a lot of responsibility in build-up because they have more time on the ball than anyone else, essentially. But they usually are going to use that time to break the lines with passes, whereas Kounde is an excellent ball carrier. I think you run a risk of him doing what he does in a central back two in Xavi's system. The right back is more inverted in the system, which means that basically he plays slightly more inside than like a typical attacking fullback would be. A Dani Alves, someone who's going to overlap players. And in that sort of inside inverted right back position, I think he'd be a really effective player going forward, and you still get his really sound profile in transition, his speed, his athleticism, and yeah, I think that just gets the most out of him going forward and going backwards as well.
Jaleel, speaking of all those positive traits that you had of Kounde there, it kind of makes me think about Eric Garcia and what you had talked about in the article as well. And basically, you gave Eric Garcia lower stats than most of the players on almost every front, which is understandable, and I agree with that overall. But don't you think Kounde's strengths are kind of what Eric Garcia does on Barcelona as the center back? Bombing forward. If Kounde can do that too. If there's any situation in which Xavi would be choosing Eric Garcia over Kounde, let's say Dest is on the right side, so that flank is covered. Wouldn't you think that Kounde would be picked over Eric Garcia in that situation, or do you think like Eric Garcia needs time or whatever else? Go into that.
I think they're slightly different. Garcia is probably the premier passer in terms of his passing range is better. He can execute sort of the diagonals. He can execute the direct balls into the forward. He can use both feet as well. Kounde is not a bad passer, but he certainly has, I would argue, a less well-rounded passing range. And out of the two traits for the centre-backs in Xavi's system, you actually want the better passer, I think. However, Eric Garcia just hasn't been good enough defensively, and that's as blunt as I can be, really.
That penalty against Frankfurt, that one still kills me, Jaleel.
Yeah, exactly, and that's going to happen at the highest level with him, because I understand he's aggressive and he wants to make challenges because he lacks that physique. He has to be that aggressive centre back, and it's going to cause him problems because he needs to get tight. He needs to get he needs to get his arms around the forward in order to make a challenge, and so that he's a liability in that sense. And I think at the highest level, like we saw even against Frankfurt in the Europa League, that those sort of situations are going to occur with him. It's a shame because, like I say in the article, he gives the most out of Barca centre-backs in terms of contributing to build-up. He progresses the quickest. He identifies passes really well. His vision is excellent. But, I'd love him to develop physically, and I hope he does. But this season, he won't be good enough, I don't think, defensively.
I like it, Jaleel.
And, Jaleel, yeah, I like it too. I mean, I think Yus and I have been... sometimes it's hard because social media can be such a big hive mind, and like I feel like at times just certain players are like in favor to slander, and I think Yus and I really have never been a big Eric Garcia fan, but like you, right, and like all of us, I think we're all huge Barca fans, and so it's not like we don't want him to succeed. We want him to get better. It's just with the profile of center backs and right and left backs we have right now, I don't think Eric Garcia is in our top 4 or even top 5 probably. I would be interested to hear you, Jaleel, talk about Gerard Pk, because he, as much as he's getting older and it's clear that like his issues in his legs have caused him some speed, and I thought you did a good point in the article discussing how he went to ground for tackles more often than he had in the past. There were times last season where I thought he was really good. And, he of course had the luck that he was playing during the period when we did the best, right, February and March of last season. But do you think he still has a spot? Do you think he has a role? How do you feel like Gerard Pk will fit in this season with Barca?
I think first of all you have to realise that it's a very young backline that we're talking about. Aside from PK, Christensen is the oldest at 26, and for a centre back, that's not ancient. You want leadership in there, and you want maturity. And there are times in games where you need somebody in that backline to be the guy who's going to say, "Okay, we step up now," or whatever it is. And PK can still be that guy. Obviously, we're not prioritising his development, we're not prioritising his pitch time, because all these guys are young and we want them to be playing as often as possible. But as a defender, when he's fit, he still has really good numbers. I pointed out in the article that he wins more aerial duels than anyone but Araujo. He's the least dribbled past of all Barca defenders last year anyway. And when he's on the pitch, Barca have and there's context needed to this statistic, but when he's on the pitch, Barca have the better XG difference than any other player. So he can have a role, I think, in terms of rotation, in terms of if there's a particularly if there's a situation with injuries that mean he has to step up, I think he'll be trusted still. He'll probably get some minutes, but I think the priority needs to be to develop the other players that are in the squad, to be honest. This will probably be his last year, and he's been a club legend, and I love PK to bits. But we definitely need to be transitioning now to a new back line. And he can still have a leadership role, like I said, and that's important, but in terms of game time, it will be stepped down significantly, I would imagine.
Yeah, that's how I feel about the whole situation as well. Maturity and having these senior players coming in and kind of helping develop the young players, and not overtaking the role, because I feel like Dani Alves kind of did that to Dest in the situation, although granted Dest was injured at some point. But I think there was a time at which it seemed Dani Alves was just taking over the position, and then I was like, well, we want him to teach Dest, we want Dest to grow from this opportunity, but I think that fell a little bit flat. But I totally agree with you, and it's very sound, and I really do hope that Xavi can use those things that you just mentioned to better the team in the long run, because coming after this last season, we still have a lot of room to grow and a lot of achievements left. But yeah, speaking of the other players, and you're talking about Christensen being 26 and the most senior player after PK, why don't you talk about his expected performance, why you chose him, and whatnot?
Yeah, I really like Christensen, I have to admit. I didn't.
So does Use. Use is a big Christensen guy, right?
Yeah, there's a lot to like. I mean, in terms of what you're looking for in a centre-back in the modern day, he ticks most of the boxes, really. He is a good ball player. He does have a good passing range. He can carry it forward. But he's also a very solid defender. And you can't, underestimate how important that is. We look often for sort of the flashier guys, but Christensen just gets the job done. He's probably the most calm and composed out of all the players that we're talking about. He doesn't go to ground very often at all, and yet he still makes a lot of tackles and interceptions. His numbers are excellent. When you watch him, you realise that he's very difficult to beat, because he just stands up, waits for the attacker to move and doesn't commit, and then he can make the right decision. And I think really he's just an extremely well balanced option. Obviously we have to see him over a long period of time. We're going off mainly pre-season and his performances for Chelsea in quite a different system. Sure. But from what we've seen, he's settled in very well. And I don't see any reason why he can't, be a mainstay in this team this season, to be honest.
Sure, and the one I was going to say, the one thing I really liked about your article talking about Christensen was his passing capability, because I think that was like one of my biggest highlights from that section. And the reason I like to bring this up in this situation is because I think I read one of your other articles, and it was talking about the pressure that Barca sustains and how it gets mitigated back to Ter Stegen and the roles of the defenders in those situations. And I think sometimes with someone that's a better passer like Christensen, that can mitigate the pressure off of Ter Stegen maybe a little bit. That way he doesn't have to be playing in such high pressure situations all the time, and maybe take off, maybe create more offensive opportunities, because Ter Stegen sometimes has to take a lot of these kicks from a far spot, right? And like, what do you think about that, for example?
Yeah, it's true. I mean, a lot of the reason why Ter Stegen was so heavily burdened in as a creator, as a progressor, was because it was often PK playing at left centre back, and if the ball came to him from the right, or actually from any position really, he wasn't on his natural side because he's a right-footed centre back playing at left back. He'd just take a touch inside and go back to Ter Stegen. If you've got a more proactive left centre-back, as we saw Eric Garcia, for example, in the preseason Clásico, who is going to receive that ball and turn out and drive, that does take a lot of pressure or responsibility off Ter Stegen. Really, the more ball players you can have in that back line, the more options you're going to have when opponents press high. And it might not be the most important thing in the world, because I've mentioned a few times on Twitter and in various articles that Xavi's quite pragmatic when the opposition presses high. He tends to like the lines broken quickly, so it's not sort of like a Man City Pep Guardiola situation where they're going back and forth between Ederson, Laporte, Stones, while they're getting heavily pressed by Salah and Mane and whatever. That doesn't happen that often at Barca, but the more ball players you have, the more options you have, and that's always a good thing.
Sure, and I think, Jaleel, as we kind of move from, just the back four in your recent article to picking your brain about Barca for the rest of this episode, I want to ask you a little bit about Xavi, because you had mentioned, before we clicked record, about some disillusionment with how Barca played under Valverde and Koeman, and that Xavi excites you. And we were very excited at the beginning too, but of course we all saw in April and May at the end of last season, the team really fell down, and I think there were some people wondering if, Xavi's tactics had been more understood by opposing coaches, and whether or not we had become more predictable, because Yus and I were there at the last two games of the season. We went to the last two games, and we saw 0 goals, right? And so just in general, the end of the season was a place where I felt like our offense wasn't able to create much. And so I just wanted to hear from you, what you think went wrong at the end of last season, and how you think Xavi, besides just the new players, tactically can make sure that we continue to surprise opponents.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. One of the criticisms that I had of Xavi last year was that the system was very rigid. And it's understandable when you're working with new players, you're instilling a football idea that's quite complex. Xavi's implementing, sort of Cruyff-style positional play that only really the very top teams in the world use effectively. And so I understood to a degree why the team sort of stalled, because he really is building this system from the ground up, and that takes time. And we obviously saw an immediate response from the players, which got Barca through that incredible season, incredible period, in February and March. But it's completely natural for things to dip. The other thing about that sort of system is that it's heavily reliant on the creative players sort of breaking out of the mould, if you like. And I think that's something that happens with time, with confidence, with playing with familiar players around you. Getting those repetitive actions that we see the likes of Man City perform, that Arsenal are sort of now performing under Arteta, and that are coming under Xavi as well. And then it's for the quality players to sort of take the reins then and step up. And I think we'll probably see more of that this season. There's so many creative players now at Barcelona. They're all competing for minutes. And I can only see the system getting a bit more fluid, more the players taking on a bit more responsibility creatively, I think. Being freed from the shackles, if you like, a little bit. Not totally, because we're still talking about quite a disciplined setup. But I think Dembele will probably have a little more freedom this year, for example. Ansu Fati is a player that likes to drift around. You can't really pin him down. And having a big focal point in Lewandowski will make a huge difference as well, to be honest, in terms of bringing in the more creative players, because there wasn't that link last year. As good as Aubameyang is at scoring goals, he was often lacking when it came to sort of link-up play. So I think there's a lot of reasons to be optimistic about this season, and Xavi's working at the peak of football coaching, to be honest, and so I think there's absolutely no reason not to trust him.
Wow, I like it. I like that confidence, Yus. That's what we need to hear, because Yus and I get a little bit nervous, and I think the last few seasons specifically have kind of instilled that in us, and I think there's been so many bad losses where it just felt like the team kind of crumbled, and like you were alluding to with PK getting phased out, there's just like that similar back four and of like Alba, Lenglet, PK, and then having Busquets there, that just had so many big historic collapses. And I'm just glad that we're finally getting totally over the hump, and it feels like we have a fully refreshed new team, not like we're kind of playing through the core of like 2015 as it gets slower and older. So I'm totally in the same boat, man. And I kind of want to go to Yus and ask you this question, Yus. Mm-hmm. We're excited about the team, right? We have all these new tools. We have Xavi having his first full preseason, having his first 8 months or so with the squad, getting them with the play style he wants. What do you expect from this team this year? Like what would you consider the minimum if we don't reach that goal in terms of maybe Copa, Liga, and Champions League, where you're going to say this season has really been a failure?
I think minimally we have to get Copa del Rey, because I think that's an easy achievement, and we've gotten time and time again in some of our worst seasons, to be honest. And we have like a whole new squad. We have so many players to choose from. I think one of the biggest drawbacks of previous seasons recently was that we didn't have a large arsenal of players to rotate. And not only that, we had a lot of injuries on a lot of the players. So I feel like we can have certain players that are devoted to maybe a little more Copa del Rey play, as we do sometimes with the goalie. But that would be one. And then if we were able to achieve second place last season, I think there's no way we can't be top two this coming season. I would, of course, love to destroy Real Madrid and take the title right back from them and just say, hey, we had a fluke season. We were growing, and we just destroyed you as we did in the preseason. But, yeah, top two.
But they're a good team.
Yeah, of course. And I know it's not going to be a cakewalk because they didn't even have Benzema. So that's going to be rough to watch coming in. And then lastly, in Champions League, man, we got to get to semis. I don't accept anything below that. But we still have, the only reason I say this is because we still have a lot of young players and a lot of new players that have to be introduced into the system, right? We have Kessie, we have half of our front line, Rafinha, Lewandowski. We still have Fati coming back from injury. We also have
Ferran Torres missed the whole preseason.
Yeah, so we have all these things.
Pedri was out.
Yeah, and the back line, of course, as we were just discussing, like all our options there. We're going to need some time to figure out what's best. Who's best against high-pressure teams, for example. Obviously, someone like Araujo, who is just a beast on many fronts of the pitch, I would say is like one of our top defenders. But yeah, those are I couldn't see this season coming in with all the things that we've faced and having a different outcome that is acceptable.
Jaleel, what about you? What do you think about that minimum requirement?
I think that the league should be the priority for sure. I think winning if Barcelona win the league, that's a success for this season. I would be a little less aggressive with my Champions League.
Listen, I'm going all out.
I just think because it's such a young squad, I think, like we just mentioned with the defence, I know there's obviously some stalwarts in there in Alba and Busquets and Lewandowski now, but the core of that squad is still really young, and so I think if Barcelona win the league and, I don't know, quarterfinals of the Champions League, maybe even last 16, I think that's a successful season.
Damn. I'd be sad if we only got to quarters. But that's okay.
I mean, yeah, let's see, right? Like I think like you guys are saying, the league is probably the one where I want to give it the best go. This Real Madrid team was really good, and Benzema kind of played out of his mind, and I'm not sure if he's going to have that same success. Not that he won't have a great season, but he was really, really clutch last year, and so I think we can compete there. I think in the Champions League, I'm looking for quarterfinals. Just want to make it there. Like you said, the team's very young. The other half of the team has PTSD from all the big Champions League games we lost, and so I don't know if the team's ready yet to make that final push. But we'll see, right? That's kind of what's so exciting is like I haven't really seen Rafinha, Dembele, Lewandowski, Ferran Torres, Ansu Fati all play together. I haven't seen Kessie, Gavi, Pedri. Like we haven't seen really a lot of the starting lineup that I think we'll see get some minutes together, and that will only happen next Saturday against Rayo. So I'm very excited.
I was thinking the one thing I wanted to ask you, and we're talking about development and young players, Jaleel, is, and in your article, it just had to spark my mind that if Kounde just comes in and is preferred by Xavi, do you think this is really going to screw over Dest's development coming into this season and his future? Because he really didn't get like a fair shot, I would say, last season, plus the injury. And then if Kounde's coming in and possibly going to be taking over that spot, and a part of the whole thing you were talking about in your analysis, I think you had your Dest article as well, and your preferences of Kounde over Dest is that inverted right back position in which the right back cuts in. Instead, you had highlighted the fact that Dest sometimes gets too far forward and kind of takes the space away from Dembele, causing kind of a little bit of chaos and high pressure in that situation and him losing the ball. With that analysis and the fact that you think that Kounde would be, a top choice here, is there room for Dest?
Yeah, Dest is a really interesting one. First of all, I'm not sure that Xavi will agree with me and Kounde at right back. I'm sticking my neck out a little bit because we haven't seen him play at all. Mm-hmm. But regardless, I think he wants to play either Araujo or Kounde in that position. Which puts pressure on Dest regardless. I think Dest needs a season of consistency because he hasn't had any with injuries and whatever it is. We've also got to remember that Sergio Roberto is probably going to be competing for that position as well.
Oh, no.
And Xavi wants to win. If Dest isn't performing and Roberto gives him just a decent level at that position, then he could even be ahead of Dest in the pecking order, which I wouldn't like, but I would understand. I think Dest needs, like I said in my article, it's a big learning curve for him. He's learning essentially a new way to play right back, and there's question marks over whether he has it in him, and I understand those question marks. Give him a season as second string, getting consistent minutes in rotation. Being trusted in, sort of the mid-level La Liga fixtures, Copa del Rey games, and let him prove himself in that environment. And I think he has potential. He's got natural talent. I want to see him develop that potential. I just really question whether he's going to get the opportunity with the competition. Even if Kounde and Araujo are centre backs, Roberto.
Well, Roberto gets minutes under every coach, right? Like much to the chagrin of almost all Barca fans, like Sergio Roberto is he's always around, and I think he had a pretty severe surgery right last season, so I'm not sure exactly where his health is at, but if Sergio Roberto's on the team, he's got a fighting chance to play right back. That's what I'll always believe, and I think we're kind of sad, Jaleel, because we're Americans and we want to see Serginho Dest and see him thrive. And I thought there were moments over the last 2 years where like it felt like he was hitting a groove, and then just immediately got kind of freak injuries, and that's sad. And we'll see what happens. And I would love to talk to you again sometime, maybe 1 to 2 to 3 months into the season to try and figure out we had this whole talk before the season started. How does it play out, right? Because, you keep alluding to the fact that this is Jaleel's, the purist, @thepurist_ preferred back four. Like, what will Xavi actually choose? I think only time will tell, right, Yus?
Yeah, I mean that it's a hard job to predict what Xavi's going to do coming into the season, and no matter how
it should be noted, though, by the way, that we
Oh,
predicted
my God.
before we talked to Jaleel, before he
God.
wrote his article. I got it right. Yus is a little bit sad.
No.
So if you want to support me, please smash that subscribe button. I don't want to keep Jaleel too late, Yus, because he's over in the aisles. So Jaleel, I just want to say thank you so much. If you have any final words, please let us know.
Well, thanks for having me, guys. It's been great. I look forward to more episodes of your show, and I look forward to the start of the season. Next Saturday is going to be really exciting for all of us Barca fans, and I think it's going to be a good one. I think the season is... I know we've gone through some trauma, as you alluded to earlier, but I think there's loads of reasons to be positive this season, so just really looking forward to it.
Okay, thank you guys so much. Have a nice week. Joan Gamper coming up this Sunday, and then the first La Liga game next Saturday against Rayo. Thank you all.
Thanks, guys.